How to control your mind, psychology that actually works. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how your mind can ruin a perfectly good day in less than 30 seconds? One comment, one memory, one random thought, and suddenly you're angry, anxious, distracted, or doubting yourself. What's scary is not that the thought appeared. What's scary is how quickly you believed it. No one taught you this, but your mind is not you. It's a tool. And if you don't learn how to control it, it will quietly control every decision you make. Your habits, your confidence, your future. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The strongest people you know are not mentally strong because they think positive all the time. They're strong because they know how their mind works. And today I want to show you exactly how to do that. Not with motivation, not with fake positivity, but with real psychology you can actually use in your daily life. Think about this. If your phone started glitching, you wouldn't blame yourself. You'd say the system is acting weird. But when your mind glitches, when it overthinks, self-sabotages, or panics, you say, "That's just who I am." And that belief alone keeps you stuck. Because once you identify with the thought, you stop questioning it. So before we go any further, remember this one sentence. Thoughts are events, not commands. They appear, they speak, and they disappear. The problem starts when you obey them without checking their intentions. Most people think controlling the mind means controlling thoughts. That's wrong. You cannot stop thoughts from appearing. Even monks can't do that. What you can control is your relationship with those thoughts. And that changes everything. Let me explain it in a simple way. Imagine you're sitting by a road, and cars are passing by. Those cars are your thoughts. Some are loud. Some are calm. Some are dangerous. But you don't have to chase every car. You don't have to jump in front of it either. You can just watch. The moment you start watching instead of reacting, your mind loses its grip on you. Here's the crazy part. Your brain doesn't care about truth. It cares about familiarity. That's why negative thoughts feel so convincing. You've rehearsed them thousands of times. Self-doubt feels real because it's familiar. Confidence feels fake because it's new. Your mind is not trying to protect your happiness. It's trying to protect patterns. So the first step to controlling your mind is awareness. Not awareness in a spiritual way. Practical awareness. When a thought appears, pause and ask, is this useful right now? Not, is it true? Because even a true thought can be useless. Worrying about tomorrow at midnight might be accurate, but it's not helpful. And usefulness matters more than accuracy when it comes to mental control. Now let's talk about something most people don't realize. Your mind loves extremes. It says always or never. I always mess things up. I'll never be good enough. This is called cognitive distortion. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The moment you catch your mind using extreme language, that's your signal to step back. Because reality is almost never extreme. But emotions are. And your mind uses emotions as evidence. You feel weak, so it says you are weak. You feel behind, so it says you are a failure. But feelings are reactions, not verdicts. Here's a simple psychological trick. Change the language in your head. Not to be positive. To be accurate. Instead of I always fail, say I failed this time. Instead of I'm not disciplined, say I didn't act disciplined today. This small shift separates your identity from your behavior. And that separation is power. People who control their mind don't argue with every thought. They label it. That's anxiety talking. That's my ego. That's fear. Labeling creates distance. And distance creates choice. Once you have a choice, you're no longer controlled. And yes, at first it feels unnatural. That's because chaos is familiar. Calm is new. But unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong. It just means you're upgrading your mental system. Let's go deeper. Your mind has one main weakness. It believes repetition over logic. That's why affirmations work, but also why self-criticism destroys people. The voice you repeat becomes the voice you trust. Think about how many times you've replayed your mistakes. Your brain has heard that story so often it thinks it's important. But how many times have you replayed your wins? Probably not even once. Control starts when you choose what gets repeated. Here's a technique you can use immediately. When your mind starts spiraling, interrupt it with a physical action. Stand up, change rooms, take a deep breath and exhale slowly. Psychology calls this a pattern break. Your nervous system can't stay in the same mental loop if the body changes state. Another thing, your environment is programming your mind more than your willpower ever could. What you scroll, who you listen to, what you consume before sleep. People try to control their mind while feeding it chaos all day. That never works. You don't fight fire with fuel. If you want a calm mind, you need calm inputs. Silence. Fewer opinions. Fewer voices. Control is not about adding more techniques. It's about removing noise. Now let's talk about the illusion of control. Most people think they're in control because they make decisions. But decisions made under emotional pressure are not control. They're reactions. True mental control shows up in pauses. The pause before replying. The pause before scrolling. The pause before reacting. That pause is where power lives. Here's something interesting. The brain hates silence. The moment there's a pause, it rushes to fill it with thoughts. That's why people avoid being alone with their mind. But if you learn to sit in that silence without reacting, you rewire your tolerance for discomfort. And discomfort tolerance is mental strength. Your mind will test you. It will say, do something, check something, escape. Don't obey immediately. Stay, observe, breathe. The urge will peak and fall. Always. This is how habits are broken. This is how impulses lose power. Controlling your mind doesn't mean being emotionless. It means feeling without being hijacked. Anger can exist without aggression. Fear can exist without avoidance. Sadness can exist without self-destruction. Emotions are information, not instructions. There's another uncomfortable truth. Your mind is heavily influenced by your identity. The story you tell yourself about who you are. If you identify as lazy, your mind will look for proof. If you identify as disciplined, it will do the same. This is why change feels hard. You're not just changing behavior. You're threatening an identity. And the mind will resist that. Not because it's evil, but because it wants consistency. So instead of saying, I am confident, say, I am someone who is learning confidence. That keeps the identity flexible. Psychology calls this identity-based change. And it works because the mind doesn't feel attacked. Another key thing, stop trying to win every internal argument. You don't need to convince your mind of anything. You just need to act despite the noise. Action leads. Belief follows. Not the other way around. The people you admire didn't wait to feel ready. They felt fear and moved anyway. Over time, the mind adjusted to match the behavior. That's real control. Let's talk about overthinking. Overthinking is not deep thinking. It's fear disguised as analysis. Your mind keeps looping because it's trying to avoid uncertainty. But certainty is an illusion. The solution to overthinking is not more thinking. It's decision. Make a small decision and move. Momentum quiets the mind better than logic ever will. Also understand this. Your mind exaggerates consequences. It makes everything feel bigger than it is. One mistake feels like the end. One rejection feels permanent. But zoom out. 5 years from now, most of what you're worrying about won't even be a memory. When your mind starts catastrophizing, ask this question. Will this matter in a year? If not, it doesn't deserve a week of your energy. Mental control is choosing where your attention goes. Attention is currency. Spend it wisely, because whatever you feed grows. Fear grows with attention. Confidence does too. Here's something powerful. You don't need to eliminate negative thoughts to control your mind. You just need to stop identifying with them. Imagine hearing a random stranger insult you on the street. You wouldn't take it as truth. You'd keep walking. Treat your negative thoughts the same way. They're just noise from a mind designed to detect danger. Your brain evolved to protect you, not to make you happy. So stop expecting comfort from it. Use it as a tool. Train it. Guide it. Daily practices matter more than big realizations. 5 minutes of awareness every day beats one motivational video. Consistency rewires the brain. And yes, you will fail sometimes. You will react. You will overthink. That doesn't mean you're losing. It means you're human. Control is not perfection. It's recovery speed. One last thing before we end. The goal is not to dominate your mind. The goal is to cooperate with it. When you fight your thoughts, they fight back harder. When you observe them, they soften. Be patient with yourself. You've been running the old system for years. This is a new one. It takes repetition. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you win. Every time you choose action over fear, you win. Every time you let a thought pass without obeying it, you win. And slowly, quietly, your mind learns something new, that you are in charge. Not because you control every thought, but because you choose which ones deserve your energy. That's real psychological control.